Casey.
Hey, Casey.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hello. Is that Nancy who's on for the?
No, it's Casey. Nancy wasn't able to start it tonight, so they gave me the login and password.
David, do you know if Casey or Reginald are going to get on?
This is Casey.
Oh, that is Casey. Okay.
Yeah,
Do we know if Reginald's getting on?
I'm not sure.
I haven't heard from him today. Let me go ahead and drop him a quick text and see if he, let's see, replies.
I guess in the meantime, we could start to kind of put our agenda together for what we want to talk through today.
Sure.
Um,
You
Go
go
ahead.
first. I was going to say, I think potentially discussion of the public hearing next week and any thoughts on organizing our approach on that um, would be helpful, I think.
Perfect. I don't know if there's any kind of discussion on any maybe takeaways from last meeting in terms of our recommendations or uh, those ahead of next meeting, or maybe recommendations, and then maybe a separate line item is to talk about next meeting and if there's any desires we have for the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay. I so so the public hearing is next Thursday,
Yes.
and we will be expected as a work group to present on our area, the proposals related to our area.
I believe so.
Um, I don't think it will be that hard. I did I did do a summary of the BPS type proposals,
Yeah.
although that hasn't circulated to the larger commission.
Hmm.
I don't think that makes much of a difference. We can
Yeah.
still, we can still present them.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for writing those up along with
Yeah.
other recommendations. From my side, it's like good to send to the full commission
Yeah.
Okay.
today and getting back to you on that.
Yeah. Same here. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, I'm with David. I think yeah, if
Okay,
you want to share those.
I will do that then. I guess the main issue for the BPS related proposals is a major one is this Department of Transportation. And we really have an idea, but not really like detailed language on that
Hmm.
proposal. And I don't, and I saw that Charles Bryson filed another letter today,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure what, David, do you have any thoughts about how to present on that, or?
I think we can kind of present the goals of it, even if we don't have specific language yet. I thought how you wrote it up was really great.
Yeah.
Just kind of saying like the desire is for this kind of reorganization. We see these as some of the core functions, and here's the like reasoning behind it. Like the policy aim is that there's a more coordinated and transparent system that ties together multiple modes of transportation that meets a need, which I thought you kind of wrote in that description. So
Mhm.
it seems to me like looking across the recommendations from multiple work groups, they're not necessarily all final language. It seems like we're really affirming as a commission, like we believe the outcome of this recommendation is right, and we'll have to craft final language at some point.
So what is, and I'm sorry if I haven't been able to keep up with all the emails from the commission. What is like the format for this meeting next Thursday is for how we present and take input, and are we breaking out into groups, or what are we? Casey, do you know? I see David's looking at his maybe he has these.
I'm
So,
pulling it up.
Sure. I don't know that there has been a definite agenda flow presented. I think, I know that when we briefly discussed it during the full charter commission, if I'm remembering right, it was, generally that we're all, every work group is just going to sort of like take its turn, right? And, present on the different, sort of, hey, here are the sections of the charter that we have been tasked with reviewing. This is generally what they focus on in terms of functions of city government. A review of, some of the meetings we've had, some of the feedback we've gotten, and then pivoting to, and here are some of the recommendations that we have shared with the full charter commission, and keeping it, pretty high level. Chris, I thought you did a really nice job at the last full charter commission meeting of doing that high level discussion. And so, I don't think it's anything where we're necessarily going to, necessarily have to put together, a PowerPoint, or that we're expected to do anything other than present, receive community feedback, be prepared to maybe answer, questions, or, engage with folks if they, want to ask about the thinking of something. But beyond that, in terms of a work product, I don't think I've seen any requests for anything tangible that we have to produce for that.
Which sucks.
I
well,
mean,
I
and
think
here's the
it
thing,
would
it's
be helpful to have our. I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking at what David posted. Like, apparently there are some breakout sessions. Like,
mhm,
I don't know if we'll have. I mean, I don't think we're going to have access to a projector. So I mean, could we bring like printouts of those summaries? I can do that. I can have my office like print out 50,
yeah.
you
I
know.
think that would be, I think that would facilitate conversation
Yeah.
great, because, I mean, it's our job to be the educators on this, right? And, for all intents and purposes, we have to assume that this is going to be the first time many of the people coming are going to, hear these topics. So I think that's a good strategy.
So what if we did, so I'm looking at this agenda item again. So what if we did, it looks like we're breaking out into groups. Like if I did like just a 10-minute, 5 to 10 minute summary of the E&A and finance proposals, and then maybe David, you could do the BPS proposals. And then I guess we just sort of listen to what the public has to say at that point.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Casey, are there anything in the summaries that you think we missed as far as like I remember at some point you raised some proposals, but I wanted to make sure we covered those.
Yeah. Let me pull up. Do your email.
I wonder if as part of the charge, they'll give any other context.
Mhm. I think that captures everything. What I'll do is I'll do an additional layer of due diligence tonight, but I really think it captures everything. If I do a quick scan of um just the sort of the administrative, the cleanup, the whatever stuff tonight, I see something that's missing, I'll send it in over in writing, but there's nothing that's jumping out to me, Chris, in terms of
Okay.
anything on those that's missing. Um, in terms of, that handout, would it be helpful for me to throw together, as part of like maybe a portion of the handout could have, here are the different sections of city government, that our charter pertains to, that we are tasked with reviewing, and like a quick one sentence summary of this is what the city division does and what they address, or this is the function of, this entity. Just so if there's anyone who, is part of the conversation who hasn't really had much by way of encounter with city government, they at least have the baseline understanding of that, that could inform asking questions, things like that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, is there any refinement we want to do to the ideas that we've presented, or we just present or just show them as we did at the last commission meeting?
Let's see. I don't know that I had any thoughts about anything that jumped out for refinement. I think, as a whole commission, where it sounds like the whole commission's really going to consider the two different approaches to E&A, if I was understanding the conversation last time correctly. That's something that, full commission is gonna, converse on that. I think one thing, I don't know if it's appropriate to, bring this up, but Chris, I wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit about the amendment that you shared about that right to organize and bargain collectively piece. I know it's sort of, personnel-ish, but obviously, city departments depend on good staff. And so there's a constructive argument at least to be made to understand, even if we're not acting on it, recommending it from our working group, to maybe talk about the thoughts about, talk about the thinking behind that a little bit. And maybe how that could, impact staffing or employees or anything, intersect with staffing employees, in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am ready to talk about it. I just don't know exactly when.
Yeah.
Let's group 3 consider it. I see the chair's note was like, thanks for presenting this. Work group 3 will need to kind of
Mhm.
talk about it. Is that, do you know if
Yeah, I mean, I submitted it under just by myself, and it's not in our work group's purview, so it's a little unclear to me how. I think I'm just gonna ask for it to be on the agenda for the next
Okay.
public regular meeting, so I can talk about it.
that's fine.
Perfect.
If you need additional like support for that, I think
Yeah.
our rules of order say if 3 members all say they want something on the agenda, like it has to. So just let
Okay,
me know, and I'd be happy to support.
okay, thank you. I just don't know how I'm supposed to squeeze it into the public hearing when it's
Yeah.
not my work group. So,
Yeah.
um,
And we'll have additional opportunities for public feedback, right? This isn't going to be the only one moving forward. So, yeah.
Um, okay, okay. So anything else you think we need to do to prepare for next Thursday?
Looking at that agenda, I don't think so. I mean, I think one thing we could do um, if we wanted to send out an email to the full commission saying, hey, we're planning to bring a handout, here's the format it's going to take,
Yeah,
and maybe see, 'cause not that I wouldn't love our working group to be like the shining stars of, of the public hearing, but I think if others aren't considering it, it could be a good thing, for them to say, oh, well, that's cool. Maybe we can do this on our own too.
yeah, I that's a good idea. I'll do that and I'll attach the drafts we have right now.
Great.
And so everybody has those.
Yeah.
Um,
And then I'll go ahead and I'll put together a handout. I should be able to do that and share with our working group tonight so we can all maybe get eyes on it and make sure that it reads nice and directly for folks. Just the general descriptions of, hey, this is our working group. This is what we were tasked with reviewing. These are high level what each of these departments does, or, something like that.
okay.
And I'm happy to, if you second eyes or anything, I'm happy to look at it.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So another item relevant to our work group, just so is we have proposed as or part of the proposal related to the heavy E&A reform involves the creation of this public advocate position. And I would help with Christine Ingracia and Alderperson Velasquez have reached, and also since it started to overlap,
Mm,
work group 1 or whatever work group Anna was on, they were looking at the same thing that they're working out. We have contacted or in the process of having the Charter Commission staff contact the Office of Public Advocate in New
mhm,
York City so they can speak to us in more detail about what this position does. It's, as far as we can tell, I can tell, the most analogous position in a city. So that's we're gonna make Anna and I, and I think someone else is gonna make a formal request for a special meeting
mm,
to take essentially just information from that public advocate position in New York.
mhm,
So, which I think will be helpful um, to learn like what works and what doesn't work. So
mhm.
I did see today too that our chair has requested a whole bunch of other special meetings as well. So I'm a little worried about squeezing all of this in, but
I am too. uh, Was there discussion at the last meeting to push forward those special meetings?
I don't recall that.
I don't recall that either.
I think it's developed in the interim.
Mhm.
Mm.
I have no problem with getting as much information as possible. I just think there's only so many days, right?
And yeah,
So um
Mhm.
yeah, I would just, in the same vein, there's only so many days left, and
Yeah.
I wish we could kind of have a shared
and
strategy.
I think it's going to prove very difficult. I mean, I'm very interested to hear what the public says next Thursday and what input we get. And I think we're going to find it very, very difficult to actually draft these proposals, right? Which we're going to have to start doing with some detail fairly soon, right? And I'm trying to think about how we do that, how we have the idea, synthesize the public's input, put them into language, whether we draft multiple alternatives, to each proposal. That is going to be a tremendous amount of work, not to mention the legal review that's involved in that,
Yeah.
As well as us actually prioritizing and
yeah,
deciding which ones we
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm very very worried about getting, and I think we're gonna have to rely heavily on this, the city councilor's office to help us with the drafting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking, like, let's say we just decided to do a Department of Transportation. I mean, that's it's gonna be difficult to draft, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you've got to
It-
essentially review, like reorder or like multiple divisions within BPS and perhaps out of BPS, and how, what sort of authority they have. It's not going to be easy. So
And I think
Mm.
that's where I really wish we could have more shared strategy around the around the special meetings, because it seems like we're coalescing around a couple main issues that really need some deeper dives to get very specific about what we're looking for that would go into the writing of the proposal, or the specific legal language. So I think it would be interesting to have maybe like those special meetings or some of our commission meetings like focused around
mhm.
those specific topics, so that we could invite in experts, because like for the transportation one, like there's authorizing um uh, uh bills from other communities that have created departments of transportation that we could like pull
Yeah,
from. And I think there is a couple other places that did change their charter to create one. So
I think Chicago did fairly recently. So I haven't even looked at it, but you're right. That's gonna be difficult. And we're down to like 3, 4 months, right?
Yeah. I think under 3 at this point, because we have to have the final versions of our amendments presented to the public by June 15th.
Yeah. So
Um, one thing that I think would be really helpful for us all to hear, and I don't know if we've asked this because we haven't gotten to this point yet, is maybe checking in with the city councilor's office staff on, now that they see, there's a general idea, I think, of the landscape of amendments. I'm sure that there may be, a few that will trickle in here and there, especially as we receive some public feedback. But I think I would appreciate hearing from their staff, somewhat of an assessment of what they're looking at currently, and if how much time they might need, like under an assumption that, let's be extremely confident and say every single amendment goes forward. How much time, like building backwards from June 15th, do they think that they would need to reconcile everything? So maybe that's something that we can, submit a request for information, or ask them to be prepared to discuss at the
yes,
upcoming April meeting.
I can put that in my email to everybody.
That'd be great.
You know, do we?
we kind of need an action plan for these next
Yeah,
3 months.
I mean, we need to have. It's not related to one work group. It's like all of us. How do we do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, okay.
Casey, a question. By that June 15th
Mhm.
date, do we need final language, or do we need to like have most final language, but at least everybody agreeing on the like specifications of our recommendations?
Mm.
Could you help me
That's-
with like what's
yeah,
that?
that's a great question. Let me pull up the language of the bill, because I believe it says final
Oh,
recommendations. I could be wrong about that. And if there is any, that could also be a good question to ask, if it just says final recommendations, to ask the city councilor's office for their thoughts on, does that mean just a final, the spirit of it, a summary of it, or does that mean the actual verbiage?
gotcha. This is like from the ordinance that we're looking at that created.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, boop, 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 confirmation, operating framework. An aside, I don't know if we need to consider the amendments that the chair added that were in our space.
You mean in her report? I, you know, I I don't know, what do you think? Find it would be, I would most likely mischaracterize or alter her ideas in some way if I'm trying to think how to do that, like,
Yeah, because I don't know that we can. I think what we're going to get into, and this is such an interesting illustration of, I think some of the process questions we have right now, where I don't know if any of our working group is able to speak to those.
Yeah.
At least,
Those,
by next week.
will those be distributed at never mind, never mind.
I think that because the focus of it is on the work of the working groups, and my understanding is, I could be wrong. I certainly don't know. I guess because my understanding is the focus of is what has come out of the working groups, and those did not necessarily come out of our working group. It seems like that's something that's going to be, discussed by the full commission, and um, maybe it's somewhat in the same camp of ideas in terms of, if it didn't come out of the working group, as members of the commission are submitting individual ideas, for the full commission review, perhaps it's a topic for discussion at the next public engagement hearing when folks have had a chance to really consider and vet them, but maybe not next week.
From the ordinance language, that makes sense, Casey, and thanks for that answer. To the earlier piece, I think the ordinance just says that we must submit it in time for it to be placed on the next general election cycle. So I think it's whatever, like, final bill language is, or final charter change language is, I think, whatever the deadline is from the Board of Elections office. I think. You all can look at this too to see if I'm reading it
Yeah.
right.
Whatever reason I'm having a city website is being slow. Hang on, let's see.
And they submitted testimony. Do you remember their names?
Yeah, it was Ben Borgmeyer and oh, I remember Ben. Let's see. It's like, oh, Gary Stoff and Ben Borgmeyer. Okay, let's see here.
So they must be certified and sent to the election authority by the 10th Tuesday before the election, which is August 27th, 2024.
Got it.
So I think we might have not that I'm arguing us stretching it out. I think June 25th is a great deadline to, like, at least have commission alignment on our recommendations and the specifics of that. But I wonder if that gives us even like an extra month to get the legal.
What date was that, David?
The notes, so this is the staff summary that are in the meeting notes for March 4th. And it says, Director Stoff stated that any recommendations from the Charter Commission need to go on a general election ballot, and that any measure, proposition, or candidate that will appear on the ballot must be certified and sent to the election authority by the 10th Tuesday before the election. That is August 27th, 2024. There's no limitation on the number of issues that we can place, but just to note that the November ballot tends to be long.
But don't we have to have,
It's 10 months after we start for the ordinance that we have to have recommendations, like the final recommendations public, I think.
don't we have to have a public hearing on our recommendations at some point?
We do. I apologize. For whatever reason, the City of St. Louis website is just not pulling up for me.
I
Let's
can
see.
paste it in the
Yeah, if you want to. A set of proposed charter amendments not more than 10 months into its term.
So publication of the draft proposed amendments.
for January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, you're right, June. But does that mean like ballot language?
That's how I read it. Like, I mean, it's not set in stone because obviously it says draft, right? But,
Yeah.
because you have a draft that circulates that the public has to be detailed enough so that the public can make meaningful commentary about it, right?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to like
Yeah.
Buy us more time.
yeah, like I think it is right to have for a community accountability to have a like near final draft of like this is what commissioners have voted on. I don't know, we may want to make sure the language is just right, like consider and weigh and make sure it doesn't have unintended consequences, still staying true to like the intent of what the commission wants from it. I don't know, maybe I don't know, June just feels so soon for us to consider, seek research, vote, write, and revise language.
Yeah. I mean, because it's sort of, you can also see contemplate, I mean, like having mostly final language done by then, and then so the public can meaningfully consider, but then perhaps,
Have like
and again,
perfect
maybe this is a question for the city councilor's office, you know, us having received that public feedback on the mostly final versions and having until August 27th, if there is some flexibility between June 15th and August 27th to tweak with a focus on having them as finals, we could possibly get them by June 15th. You know, I think this is something that we're gonna need to have a good conversation, get some clarity on pretty quickly, you know, ideally at the April meeting. It would be great, I think, if we could have a few more months of flexibility, but I do agree that we can sort of read into the, you know, proposed amendments and then at least one public hearing comment that it's largely supposed to be final for fair notice to the public. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. To me, I
Okay.
think this. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. You two are lawyers. To me, this is like a backstop that the charter can't like not present its set of recommendations to the public, but that it has to be a like near final draft, and it's okay for there to be community input after that draft is submitted, with the expectation that there's going to be some finalization in there, but that
Yeah.
we're not going to be like adding new concepts to it that weren't presented to the
I mean,
public.
I think that's the spirit of that language.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not
Thank
how
you.
sometimes it works. I think legally you could argue you could do more, but I think the spirit is like you're making refinements at that point. So
Thanks for
Yeah.
humoring me. I'm just trying to get the
So
we
I
can.
think that's what I'm gonna also, so one of the things when I send this email to the larger commission staff is like, we're looking at like, we've got to have drafts at around June 15th to present to the public, right? How are we doing? We need to talk about how we're gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
And I actually then have, so I see that Mr. Bryson's here.
Yeah.
I related to this issue, I have a question for Mr. Bryson if we can let him in.
Sure. Yeah.
and he also
Let's see.
posted a comment in the chat saying that we could look to the St. Louis County Department of Transportation language.
Yeah.
Okay. See, Charles, are you in a position where you'd be free to join our conversation? Can you throw a hand up? Perfect. Okay. Gonna move you over and you should be able to unmute and talk with us.
So my question to Mr. Bryson is this. So, you know, we are considering this Department of Transportation idea. It will be presented at the public hearing next Thursday, but as we and I say this without I'm not sure what the support of any particular member is, voting member of the commission is, but you have advocated for this idea, but do you have specific language that that you are developing or would be ready to present to the commission as a draft proposal?
Well, first of all, thank you both for the work that you're doing. The simple answer is I would be pulling from the same entities that I've given you, plus other data. If you don't remember, way back, a woman named Liz Kramer came to one of your meetings, and she actually had information from a friend of hers named Dawn Walter, who is with the Community Mobility Committee, and they offered language at that time as to how it would occur. So I would be taking from that, plus looking at specific language from other cities in the last 5 years who have changed from a streets department to a Department of Transportation. And I would get that to you should you desire it, certainly before your meeting to look over. I would do that research over the weekend and have it possibly ready for you Monday morning so that you would hopefully or possibly have a chance to look over it.
I'm not sure that's very nice, but I'm not sure that immediate urgency is needed. I'm just thinking, you know, we have discussed in the last 5 minutes, how do we actually start drafting these proposals? I'm not saying any language that one group versus the other presents is good or bad, but I mean, it would, I think, only help us to have more specific language by like getting into April, you know.
Well, I'll be ready to make, if you're sort of asking me, would I be ready to present next Thursday? The answer is yes.
It would be the
April 4th.
meeting on April 4th.
April, yeah.
So not the public meeting that I sort of thought.
I mean, you could say whatever you want at the that's fine if you want to do the public meeting, but I am more I think if you want to submit language that will get the attention of the full commission, it would be April 1st.
That's right.
April 1st.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be ready.
Charles, thanks for joining tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much. I'm going to stay on for a while because I just love you people. So.
You've been a very, diligent, I don't want to say viewer. I mean, that feels weird, like we're some sort of a show, but no, just very diligent. And so thank you for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Okay. Is there any other clarity as long as we're, trying to think through upcoming processes that we think would be helpful? I feel like I feel like these are the big ones, some pretty big basics.
I mean, I really think we need to settle on a common set of criteria for how we're going to vote on these recommendations, or how we're going to end process for how we decide on final ones, and then how we further engage recommendations where we have outstanding questions.
Because I believe it's votes of 5 commissioners are needed ultimately for, I believe that's what we currently have in our rules. I think that's the only guidance we currently have in our rules, right? Is that the vote of 5 commissioners is needed for something to essentially pass into that final realm of whatever we would put forth to the public, you know, in whatever form that is after June 15th. But I do agree that beyond that, you know, there's not a ton of guidance on that process.
Yeah, I think we just haven't gotten clear. Like there's some strategy to what we're putting forward and maybe even bundling that's going to happen. And I
Mm.
don't know that we've had robust conversations yet as a commission to inform our voting.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have to have a discussion on April 1st about all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is what, let me go ahead and drop in the chat here, the relevant language. So that is just for the edification of everyone. That's what our rules currently say about proposed amendments.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific, well, I guess you're going to let Chris, what we'd like to see on the agenda for next time.
Sorry, what was that?
Did you say that you were gonna send an email that includes?
I'll send an email.
About
Yeah.
next, okay.
Yeah.
Just because it is in our bylaws that a set of commissioners can request something to be on the agenda. So I don't know if there was anything that we wanted to.
Okay.
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 Great.
Okay.
Well, anything else anyone wants to talk about? I feel like we covered actually a lot of really good ground tonight.
I think we're set. So
Okay.
I'll see everybody next Thursday.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, David. Thanks,
Okay.
Charles.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.